Hi everybody, welcome back. Over halfway through now, we're on lesson 6 for our English. So welcome back, year 4. Right, let's see what we're up to today. So you'll remember we started our Wild World poem, didn't we, last lesson? And it was a poem about the rainforest. So what are we going to do with that poem today? Well, to start off with, we're going to think about the words and phrases in the poem and how they are used. We are also going to think about some expanded noun phrases again. Keep coming back to those. We're going to be experts on those by the end of this unit. And we're going to be using the poem to write our own poem today. So we're going to use the structure of the poem that we've been reading yesterday. And we're going to go and try and write our own rainforest poem. So we're going to get started. So what do we need today? We need normal stuff today. So pen for writing, pen for editing, and your English book or some line paper. Right, let's get cracking. Okay, so we are practicing making noun phrases to start off with today. We've done loads of work on it now, so it should be something that comes back into your brain nice and easily. I'm going to give you a noun and a picture of that noun, and I want you to come up with 1 or 2 adjectives to pre-modify that. That means put them in front of, like we've been doing to make our noun phrases. So we're going to pre-modify those nouns. If you can come up with a prepositional phrase to add on as well, that would be fantastic. Are you ready? Pens at the ready. Here we go. Rainforest. Can you write down some adjectives to describe that rainforest? So I want a something something rainforest or the something something rainforest, and then maybe even a prepositional phrase as well if you can. Off you go. Press pause. Right, next one. Are you ready for the next one? The next one is monkey. That's a little squirrel monkey there. Can you write an expanded noun phrase and maybe a prepositional phrase for the monkey? Press pause and off you go. And our third one, are you ready for our third one? Here we go. Rain. How are you describing that rain? Can we make an expanded noun phrase for that? Off you go. Press pause. And finally, tree frog. What can you write about that tree frog? Think about the behaviour of the tree frog or the way it looks or what it's got on its body. Off you go. Right, what did you come up with? I'm sure you've got really good at writing these by now. So you might have come up with something like the hot, humid rainforest and making sure you've got that comma between hot and humid. You might have come up with impenetrable. We used that word before, didn't we? It was really difficult to get through, and that is like a really thick, impenetrable rainforest. So you might have come up with that. You probably won't have come up with the same words as me. That's fine, as long as your words are, your 2 adjectives are contrasting. So they're not talking about the same thing. So we don't want huge, giant rainforest. They're both talking about the size. We want some variations in there. So they add extra information, not repeat the same information. And then for monkey, you might have had the small, agile monkey. Agile means it's very easy to move around. And you might have done really well and got a prepositional phrase like with a long curly tail. So remember, with is our preposition to start a prepositional phrase, and long curly tail. We've got adjective, noun again. And then we had rain. One of my favourite words to describe rain is torrential rain. That means there's lots and lots and lots of rain. So you might have had the refreshing torrential rain, or the ceaseless, that means never stopping, the ceaseless tropical rain. And then finally, that tree frog. What did you come up with for the tree frog? I thought of, you could have a tiny green tree frog. And then I thought about, oh, where would it be? And I put hidden amidst the lush foliage. Amidst means kind of within. So within the lush foliage, that means the leaves and things. So foliage is the leaves around a plant. So you could have had smooth-skinned tree frog. You might have talked about the tiny green tree frog with big bulging eyes, big red bulging eyes even. So hopefully you've done really well on that. Right, what else are we going to do today? So you may well be able to use those ideas in your poetry today. So make sure you've got those in your book, and don't forget to refer back to them a bit later on in the lesson if you need them. So here was our text from yesterday, you will remember. And it was all about the rainforest, and you drew some beautiful pictures and you labelled them with all the words from the rainforest poem. So today we're going to be really looking at some of the devices that the poet has used, that Angela McAllister has included, and how it's structured, how the different parts of the poem go together, so that you can use that to help you write a poem. So let's have a look at the beginning. So there are some poetic devices I want to think about so far. So the first thing I want to look at is alliteration. Now, hopefully you've heard of the word alliteration before, and that is where an author repeats the initial sound in a word deliberately to make it flow better. So if you have a look here, we've got some really good examples of alliteration. So we've got swing, swoop, and song of life. So we've got that S sound repeating. We've got bright birds. So we've got the B sound repeating. We've got strangle vine scrambling here. So we've got that S sound again. We've got glimmer in the gloom. We've got that gl sound. We've got two sounds there that repeated at the beginning of that. Gl, glimmer, and gl, gloom. So she uses alliteration a lot. So that's one of the things I want you to try really hard to use today in your poem is, can you think of maybe some adjectives to describe the noun that have the same sound at the beginning of them? So some alliteration. She also uses lots of noun phrases. So she's got a lot of adjectives in her poetry. And that's really common in poetry, where the poem is describing a scene. And there are lots of poems where they describe scenes. And this poem is describing the rainforest, isn't it? So we're going to be able to use all those words we've come up with before to describe the rainforest. So you can see here, we've got hot, wet rainforest. Okay, and we looked at all those expanded noun phrases yesterday, didn't we? We've got a shady world. And we have also got some really short lines and then some slightly longer lines that we need to have a look at. So the short lines, we've often got some really nice noun phrases in the short lines that she uses. And then we've got some slightly longer lines that give us a bit more description about what's happening. And then we go back to a short line again. And you'll notice, like in lots of poems, every line starts with a capital letter. And you don't have to write in sentences. That's really important. So if we look at we're going to focus really closely on the first part of the poem now. We're going to look at the structure of this first part of the poem, and then you're going to write the first part of your poem, okay? And then we're going to come back and look at the second part, and you're going to write the second part of your poem. So by the end of the lesson, you're going to have a whole poem written. So if we have a look, here we've got hot, wet, rainforest. Adjective, adjective, noun, okay? So your poem has to start adjective, adjective, noun. And so I'm going to have a go at writing my poem, and then I'm going to give you a chance to have a go at writing your poem. And so I'm going to model some parts of it, and then I'm going to leave you to carry on and do the rest of your part of the poem. So what we have to make sure that happens is the first part has to contrast with the second part of the poem. So in this poem, it's the canopy and the floor. In our poem, it might be slightly different. So if I show you, this is the picture that I want you to use to help you write your poem. So remember, Angela McAllister had that picture all the way round her poem, didn't she? So I want you to have this picture all the way round your poem. So what can you see in that poem? So you might contrast the animals on the land with the animals in the water. So there might be a contrast there. Here's the water. Look, we've got a raging river going through here, which is not uncommon because we've got the massive Amazon river running through the Amazon rainforest. You might want to contrast the animals up in the high parts in the canopy with the floor, like Angela McAllister did. That's up to you. But there has to be two sections to your poem, and they have to contrast. They have to be slightly different, okay? So we don't want it's really bright and beautiful here and it's really bright and beautiful there. We want two contrasting parts to your poem. So it might be a really safe, beautiful part and a really scary, frightening part. It might be a really light, colourful part and a really dark part, but there has to be a contrast there. Okay, so I'm going to have a go now at writing my first line of my poem. So if we go back to her first line is hot, wet, rainforest. So we want adjective, adjective, noun. So what am I going to write in my poem? I need two description words. I think I'm going to keep the word rainforest. I'm going to magpie that from her. And I am going to go with, I might still hot as well, but I'm going to say hot, humid, rainforest. Why do you think I chose those two to go together? Hot, humid, rainforest. Because here, look, got some alliteration already, so I can tick that one off on my list already because I've already got it in my poem. Hot, humid rainforest. Right, press pause, have a go at your very first line. Off you go. Right, we're on to the second line now. So let's have a look at the structure of the second line. Spreads. Spreads is a verb. Okay, spreads a green roof high above the earth. So I'm not going to use spreads. I think I'm going to use reaches. Reaches. So my hot, humid rainforest. And I'm going to thinking of reaches as in how far, because in that picture, you can't really see anything other than rainforest. And that's pretty much what it's like if you're in the center of the rainforest. It reaches so far. So I'm going to say reaches as far as the, oh, how far is it? Far as, oh, the eye can see. And you can see if you run out of space on one line, but you want this to be all part of your line, you could just tuck it in underneath there. Okay, so I've got a capital letter at the beginning, capital letter, and I've got reaches as far as the eye can see. So I need a verb and then a description of what happens in that rainforest. Okay, so have a go at writing your second line now. Off you go. Right, now we're on to that third line, and that third line is to do with sounds in her poem, but it doesn't have to be about sounds. It could be that we have, so she described the sounds as being loud, so it starts with an adjective and then gives us a bit more detail, so it's quite a long line again. I think I might start with it being very bright. I think I start about the colours. So the thing I like about the rainforest is colours. So I'm going to write bright as my adjective. So you need to choose an adjective here. So if you want the adjective to be about noise, you might choose loud, or another adjective to describe the noise. You might want to think about the smells, what it smells like in the rainforest, and you can have an adjective to describe the smells there. You might want to describe how it feels, okay, and you might go through that there. So I'm going to write, oh, and she's got alliteration there. I wonder if I can manage alliteration again. Bright with, so what is it that makes the rainforest bright? It's the feathers of the birds. It's the fur, that starts with an F, and it's the plants, isn't it? But that doesn't begin with an F. Oh, but I can think of a synonym that does. I was thinking of foliage. So bright with feathers, fur, and foliage. And then I've got another example of alliteration in there. And foliage. So bright with feathers, fur, and foliage of the animals and plants. Of the, I've thought of something. I can get some even more alliteration. You might not be able to get this amount of alliteration in, but don't worry. Just give it a try. Bright with feathers, fur, and foliage of the, instead of writing animals and plants, I'm going to write flora and fauna. Flora means plants and fauna is a scientific word for animals. And I've managed to get that F repeated lots of times. Can you see that? You may not be able to get it that many times, but I've got lots of alliteration in there. So I've got hot, humid rainforest, reaches as far as the eye can see, bright with feathers, fur, and foliage of the flora and fauna. Oh, that's a mouthful to say, isn't it? Right, have a go at that third line for me. Press pause and have a go at that. Right, now we're on to line 4. Bright birds flash. So we've got adjective, adjective, and a verb. What's it doing? Okay, so we might want to pick out one of the animals now, and we're going to put that into our line. And the second line is exactly the same. We've got noun, verb, okay? And if you want to, you could add an adjective in there as well, but they're 2 really short lines, okay? So we've got 2 really short lines, adjective, adjective, noun, and then noun, verb, okay? So we've got adjective, noun, verb, and then we've got noun, verb. Okay, so bright birds flash. Flash is the verb. And then apes, that's the noun. Chatter. Can you have a go now? We want adjective, noun, verb, and then noun, verb. Well, and I'll have a go at mine while you're writing. So press pause and have a go at that now. Okay, how did you do? Let's have a look. I got, my adjective was agile. Agile monkeys, there's my noun. Swing, because they're swinging in the trees, these monkeys, aren't they? And then I've got birds flutter. So they're fluttering their wings. And then I've got on to the next line. And the next line, we've got multicolored flowers, so adjective, noun. And we've got a sentence here, open to attract beautiful butterflies. So we've got, need to have an animal or a plant here doing something or something else. Okay, and if we look at the main part of the poem, we go back to our original poem, Angela McAllister had plump fruit, so there's her adjective and noun, ripens, so that's what it's doing, to slowly tempt the sloth. So why is it ripening? So that the sloths can eat it. And I've got my multicolored flowers opening to attract the beautiful butterflies. So you need something happening to affect something else, okay? So we've got an adjective and a noun, and then we've got our verb, and then we've got something else, okay? So have a go at that line now. So you've got that one as well, and then we've got one more line, and we've finished our last section. So have a go at that one now. And our final line now is a question, okay? Because it's a question to introduce the second section of our poem. And it's a rhetorical question. It's not a question that needs an answer. It's a question to get people thinking. So in Angela McAllister's poem, she's got, but what is hidden below that canopy where the sun cannot pass? So she's introducing, we're now moving from the canopy to the ground of the rainforest, okay? So I've decided that I'm going to move from the ground on the rainforest towards the river. And I want the river to sound a little bit frightening, because there are, I can think of lots of scary animals that might be hiding in that river. So I'm going to write, but what, I'm going to steal that bit from Angela, but what, and I think I might have, I'm going to steal hiding. She wrote hidden, but I'm going to say, but what is hiding? And I need to talk about the river now. So I'm going to say, what is hiding in the murky river? So I want it to sound a bit horrible. I don't want it to sound nice. Where the trees do not quite reach. And I'm going to put a question mark on the end. So your last two lines are going to be introducing your next section of the poem using a question. So I've got, but what is hiding in the murky river where the trees do not quite reach? And Angela has got, but what is hidden below that canopy where the sun cannot pass? So have a go at writing your second, your last line of your first section, introducing your second section. Off you go. Right, our whole of our first section is finished. So I want you to read it through now, make sure it all makes sense and it all fits together. So you might have to slightly alter words if they don't quite sound right. So let me read you Angela's again, and then you're going to see if yours flows as well as hers does. We've got a nice short opening sentence. Have you got that? Hot, wet rainforest. In fact, it's not a sentence, it's a phrase, isn't it? Hot, wet rainforest. And what does that hot, wet rainforest do? It spreads a green roof high above the earth. So we've got that word spreads, we've got a verb in there, and what is it doing? And then we've got an adjective starting our next line, loud. I had, what did I have on mine? I had here, bright. I described that, what it looked like, didn't I? And then we've got bright birds flash. So two nice short lines again here, bright birds flash. So adjective, noun, and verb, and then a noun and another verb. And then we had something happening to tempt something else. And then our final line was a question. So just have a look now, read it all the way through, make sure you're happy with it. And then we're going to have a look at the second section. And we're going to do this a little bit more quickly. I'm not going to do it step by step for you because I did the first section step by step. I'm going to see if you can apply the same things. So we're going back to think about this again, but we want a contrast now. So Angela had a shady world. So we've got another little noun phrase in there. So you need your little noun phrase. Okay, then look at the next line and think, what does this look like? Of strange vines scrambling for a shaft of light. So we've got something happening here again. We've got another verb in here. Okay, lush leaves searching for a glimmer in the gloom. So we've got an adjective and noun, and then another verb saying what they're doing. Okay, and we're going to go all the way down to the end of the poem. So look at the line from the poem. Create your line. Look at the next line from the poem. Create your line and see if you can get a nice contrast in there. Okay, so my second section is going to be all to do with the river and all the scary creatures in the river. So you might want to have a contrast. You can either have a contrast between, so think about what's my first part of my poem about? Can I think of something really different to describe in the second part of my poem? Okay, and use those lines to help you. Off you go now. Right, hopefully you've come back to me because you have finished the second section of your poem. And hopefully you've read it all the way from the beginning to the end. And the first thing I want you to do is check that you've got a capital letter to start each line of your poem. Okay, and now we're going to look at what should be in our poems to make sure that we've done it properly. So let's go back and have a look at what we're going to need in our poem. So that was the second section of our poem. Let's have a look at what we're going to need. So first of all, has your poem got two contrasting bits? What's the first part of your poem about? And is the second part of your poem about something slightly different? Okay, so we talked, didn't we, about it being on the land or in the water. We talked about it being up in the canopy or down on the floor. We talked about it maybe being bright and wonderful or a little bit scary. So there's got to be a contrast in your poem. Have you managed to do that? Secondly, have you used short, expanded noun phrase lines to start each section? So Angela had used a description of the rainforest. I wrote hot, humid rainforest as the start of mine, didn't I? And she used a shady world as the start of her second section. So have you used those nice short lines in the right places? Have you got some alliteration in your poem? Remember, I had that line where I went overboard, a bit overboard maybe, with loads of S. I had feathers, fur, foliage, flora and fauna all in one line. Have you managed some alliteration? If you haven't, go back with your coloured pen and see if you can add in. So if you've got an adjective to describe a noun, could you think of another adjective that would start with the same letter as the noun starts with, that you could put in there? So just as long as you've got at least one example of alliteration, that's brilliant. Then, have you finished the first section of your poem with a question, like Angela did? So I finished my last section with, but what is hiding in the murky river where the trees do not quite reach? Have you managed to finish your first section with a question? And finally, have you matched your words to the illustration? So remember, we had that picture, didn't we, that we were going to use to go round our poem. Have you managed to do that? And if you want to, you could now write, once you think, yep, I'm really pleased with my poem, you could write it in the middle of a page and you could do your beautiful illustration around it if you wanted to. And I'm sure your teachers would love to see your final poem. So well done. We've completed another lesson. You've done brilliantly. This is the last lesson that we're going to be looking at poetry, because tomorrow we're going to be looking at something slightly different. So tomorrow we're moving on from poetry and we're going to look at an extract from one of my very favourite books. Now, I love this book, and when I knew we were doing a unit on rainforest, I thought, oh, I can't miss this. I'm going to have to win this. So this is the book. We can't, you can look at it, it's pretty thick. It's a lovely book. Lots of children I've recommended this to have told me how much they love it. So this is the book called The Explorer by Catherine Rundell. And Catherine Rundell is one of my favourite authors. She writes lots of lovely books. She's also written another one of my favourites called The Rooftoppers. So if you're a really good reader, you might want to have a go at reading the whole book. We're just going to take a tiny section to have a little taster of what that book is about. So I'm going to show you a little taster. So you know how when you have films, sometimes you often get a little trailer. Well, this is like a little trailer for the book of The Explorers. So let's have a look. This is what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Let me find it for you now. That's the trailer for The Explorer. So that's the book we're going to be having a look at tomorrow. If you're a bit disappointed that we're moving on from poetry, I have got one more little challenge for you if you want to. So on the Authorify website, Angela McAllister suggests that one of the things that she would have wished she'd put in the book that she didn't was a 14th habitat, which is the habitat of the Galapagos Islands. And she really wishes that she wrote a poem about the Galapagos Islands. So if you fancy the idea of writing another poem, you've got really into poetry today and you want to have another go, that is the idea. So what I'd like you to do is take the rainforest poetry that we've been looking at and write a version for the Galapagos Islands. And here are some links for you that you can go and have a look and find out about the Galapagos Islands. But that's just a little bit of an extra challenge if you're really into poetry. Otherwise, we will be looking at this very exciting book, The Explorer, tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day.